Okay, part 2. I have worked all the way around his head following that same guide. Now I need to attach in through here. So from that front section we already did to the back section we've been working on. Let me see where I left off. Okay, so that's a section I've done. Get the hair I'm not working with out of my way. So it's the same thing. We're just following the guide around from the top section to the bottom. And then in my next section, you're going to see we're going to connect the back to the front. When I got around here about halfway through his head, I'm changing my position once again, like when I cut this section, that I'm standing alongside of him, facing him now. Now we're going to make sure that everything's going to blend in. Section from the last section. See, I'm still having hair I need to cut. Just really dig that comb in there to get the hair. You need to make sure you're getting all those hairs. Now I've gotten up to where that front section was, and we're going to make sure everything's just connected. Now we're going to do something called cross-checking. We're just going to be combing through the whole hair. Remember how I showed you to kind of check how that was, the angle? We're just going to kind of go back through the haircut and make sure we don't see any. Make sure our fingers are angled the way they should be, but make sure we don't see any long pieces that we may have missed while we were doing this. After you finish cross-checking the whole head, you're going to want to re-wet it because we are going to do the perimeter cut now. We're going to go around the perimeter of the haircut and get it all cleaned up. I always like to start here kind of in this bang section. I do not like to go straight across. So ladies, when you're cutting your own bangs or cutting anyone else's, do this. Just be careful not to cut your fingers. This is called tipping, and it leaves a much more natural and forgiving line in the front. I'm just tipping it. Now, once again, Joe's a bit recessed, but if someone wasn't, all of this hair would be coming out to here, and I would be going around the whole face that way. When you get to the sides with a man's short haircut like this, you really want to lay the hair in, and it's okay to go straight through. I'm literally putting my scissors against his face and running along his face. This is the way to get a nice short haircut. I'm going to be cleaning up with clippers after this and show you what to do about that. Depends on where the person wants their hair to stop and start here. We will be cleaning this up right here once again with clippers. And here comes a bit of the tricky part. Let me get around Kendall here a little bit. Around the ear. Joe likes his hair up and off of his ear. So just be real careful when you're getting in there with the tips. The hair is nice and wet, so it'll lay down when I put it down. I'm using my hand to push his hair down and to push his ear and his hair down. I'm using my hand to hold that. I'm making sure my scissors are running alongside easily on his head. And I'm just following that natural shape of how the hair grows. Hold the ear out of the way. I'm going to clean that up better with the clippers. And my hand's going to come, I'm trying to do this without getting away the camera. My hand's going to come in this way. There, and just cut down into that sideburn area. Straight across there. I'm going to bring this back a little bit, get some of that. And this I'm going to clean up with my clippers because you do not want to get your scissors in there. You might give a little boo-boo. I'm going to follow this line as I go down the back here, up to connect of what I just cut around the ears. I'm now going to do the same thing on the other side. Need a little more water. Okay, so I've already cut this front section with the point cutting tip cutting, point cutting, not blunt cutting. Now going to comb this forward, push it down with my hand, follow up the natural hairline, cut into that sideburn. And now I'm going to go around his ear. It's a little easier when you're a right-hander to cut around the ear on the right side. You're not having to come up and around. See all these funny little hairs right in here? Those are going to have to get cleaned up with a clipper because you really don't want to get in there too tight with your scissors. I'm combing this hair, getting all those funky little hairs that want to curl up behind the ear, getting them pressed down and cut. I'm not going into the head any higher than his natural hair growth as I go around here. So, you know, the hair starts growing out up in here. You don't want to cut higher than that. Okay, now if you come around the back, you can see I haven't done this yet. I'm going to go from that point I just made from behind each ear. Joe has a very low hairline with the hair on his neck, so I'm ignoring that. We're going to clean that up with the clippers. And I'm just connecting around the back of his neck from the two sides. Okay, now this is when we get our clippers out. A hairstylist has something called edgers, which would be a smaller clipper like this. It doesn't have any settings, doesn't have any levers, and this is really to go around and clean around the head. You probably do not have these. Sometimes electric shavers have a little clipper on them, and that could work. So I'm going to get out the handy dandy clippers that a lot of people have around their house to educate you on these. I have no clipper guard on this, so this would be considered a 1. And there's a lever. This brings this blade out longer or shorter. For this purpose, I want it short, so my lever goes all the way up to make those two blades almost be equal to each other. If you can see that better against the blue maybe. So I'm bringing it up to make it shorter. I'm going to put it upside down. It's not this way. I mean, you can go this way to get some of this longer hair, but when I start to edge, I'm going to go in like this, right against there, to get all that little hair that my scissors couldn't get, to clean up the edge. I'm going to go up to get this long neck hair. Your little boys won't have that. Be careful, don't get into the cut that you just cleaned up. If you did, we'll get a clipper guard on there and I'll show you. We can fix if you cut a little hole in there, but best thing is hair grows back. So straight in on the shortest setting around that edge. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up his neck hair with it. Now remember those little hairs I told you about that are hiding back here? We're just gonna go, I'm holding the clipper on an angle to his head, so I'm only cutting right here. I'm not gonna go in like this because I'll end up getting into this by accident. I'm only using that little corner edge of my clipper. I'm cleaning up all those loose hairs, including these funny little ones that grow in on some people at the top of their ear. Cleaning that all off. This hair's not attached there. Just using that little corner of my clipper, making sure this rest of his blade does not get into his head. I'm going to square this off. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm putting my clipper in on that angle just so I cut with this little tiny bit of the clipper as I go around the ear. I'm just following that same line. I'm pushing his ear out of the way. Getting this hair that's growing here. And then squaring off that sideburn section. Okay, comb. Guess what? You just did your first guy's haircut. Now's the time to put some product in it, comb it over how you want it, and you're good to go.